Hi everybody, and thank you again for watching another episode of Gaffer and Gear. Well, today is another Back to Basics episode, and we're going to look at boom arms. So this one is an Avenger D650. So we're just going to go over a little bit of terminology first. So I've got my tilt locker here. Now over here I've got my fulcrum lock. Your fulcrum is the point at which everything balances on. Now this is the key thing to boom arms, to making a boom arm easy to use, is you can unlock here and you can adjust where your counterweight is, or where your center of gravity is on the pole. And we've also got up the front here, we've got our locker for the extender. Okay, so we've got the extension, we've got our fulcrum point, and we've got our tilter. All right, let's get into setting this thing up. Now, before we get into building the boom arm, I just want to give you a quick safety tip. Where possible, always try and put a leg underneath the load on the boom arm. Okay, so if you've got the boom arm heavily off balance and you have it over one of your legs, it is less likely to tip. But if you happen to have the boom arm in between the legs, say here, it doesn't take much effort to tip the stand. So I'm just going to use 2 fingers, and even though I've got 3 shot bags, I can tip the stand in this position. Whereas if my weight is over the leg, it's a lot more difficult to lift the legs off the ground. Now I just want to point something out here. This is the only place I've got available in my house to set up the boom arm, and I'm on a steep slope. So I've got to have my lazy leg or adjustable leg facing downhill. So when I build, I won't have the leg over the boom arm, which is the ideal. All right, so let's get the boom arm onto the stand, and this is where a lot of people struggle. All right, so the first thing I do is I have a lot of shot bags on the stand, and that's to make sure the stand's not going to move around as I'm doing adjustments to the boom arm. All right, so first step is make sure that the stand is ready to receive the boom arm, so I'll make sure that's unlocked. Now I want my counterweight down the bottom. I want my fulcrum point as high up as I can get it, and now I undo the tilt, so that whichever angle I have the boom arm on, the spigot is pointing down, ready to go into the light stand. Okay, so just bend my legs to lift it. As you can see, the spigot is pointing towards the stand. Into the hole it goes. Now at this point, I undo my fulcrum and push forwards. Give everything a lockdown. Now at this point, the boom arm is going to be back heavy because there's no weight on the front. Now that's okay, because when I put the light on, it'll balance out. Now I've got the light ready to go on, so let's put that on. Roughly sort out my cables. And don't forget to put a safety chain on at this point. Now built into the boom arm, there should be a loop for you to put your safety wire or safety chain through. Now at this stage, it's going to be front heavy. So what I do is I undo my fulcrum point and just balance it out a little bit. And now I'm ready to start getting my cable management into play. So for my cable management, I like to use spring clips. And I just put these on the poles and run the cable over the top. I don't tie the cables down or tape the cables into place because I've got a lot of movement to do at this point. Now let's extend the boom arm out. Now, as I extend the boom arm out, it's going to get front heavy, so I need to adjust my counterweight on the back. So in order to do that, I undo the fulcrum point now, so that's loose, and I start extending. Now to counterbalance, I just push through the fulcrum point. Let's extend more, lock my extender, and push back my counterweight through the fulcrum point. Okay, now I'm at maximum extension. Now it should be a little bit front heavy. Now I know that from experience with this light. Now, ideally, I want it to be a little bit front heavy, just to make sure that it's not back heavy, because if it's back heavy, the weight will be orientated left to loosen on my locker. So I want the weight slightly biased towards the front, so that it's definitely going to lock here if it starts to slip. Now, it might not look like it on screen, but my driveway is on quite a bit of a slope, so I need to have my adjustable leg facing downhill. But if that wasn't the case, and I could get a leg underneath the load, I'd feel confident to put just a little bit more extension into this boom pole. Now, of course, you could also put some additional counterweight on if you want to go out a bit further, but bear in mind you're adding weight to the stand, and at some point you might have to lift the column if you don't have a wind up. Now, if you've got a light with an external power supply or controller, you could also use that as an additional counterweight. Now, instead of adding more weight to the back, another solution is a ratchet strap. So you can hook it into the bottom of the center column and then attach it to the back and tighten it up. So what that does is it stops the light from being able to tilt down. But it also has another problem. You can't pan the light around unless you've got the stands on wheels. So it does have some limitations. Now let's get into taking it down. So the first thing I would do if I had removable cables would be to get all of the cables out of the way, but I can't do that with this light. So the best I can do at this point is get rid of my cable clamps. Now what I'm going to do is shimmy everything together. So I'm going to move the extension down and then I'm going to move my counterweight back. Okay, so take the weight here. Now when I push this in, I'm going to have to push up here a little bit, otherwise it'll jam inside the pipe here. So push up, move that in. Okay, adjust my counterweight to compensate for that move. Move this back in, so everything's shimmying back and forth. Okay, then adjust my counterweight back a little bit. Okay, now at this point, you're probably thinking, well, this is a bit front heavy, and that's okay because I've got to take the light off. Okay, so if I've got it balanced at this point and I take the light off, then it becomes extremely back heavy. Okay, so I'm happy with how this is set up. I'm happy that once I take the light off, it won't be too back heavy. Now, before I take the light off, I make sure that I'm definitely locked here and that's not going to move. Undo my light. Now, before I take the light off, I put my hand over the boom just so I can feel if it wants to go upwards. Now, at this point, I'm happy that that's secure and I can put the light away. Now, I didn't explain that too well, so I'm going to put some additional explanation in at this point. The reason I don't want the boom arm to be back heavy when I remove the light is to ensure that it won't swing upwards into a ceiling if I'm working indoors. Now, the next bit, getting the boom off the stand. Okay, so I'm going to undo my fulcrum point and undo my tilt, and then I just move the counterweight back towards me and down. Now I lock my fulcrum point, undo my stand lock, and raise it up.